I think everyone expected a solid product from Aditya Dhar, but to create this kind of mayhem after all the negativity surrounding the film leading up to its release really does put some faith in me as a fan of cinema that if a favorable word of mouth spreads for the right film, the sky can be the limit of its run in theaters. The one aspect of the film that struck a chord with many, both positively and negatively from my review of the film, is that the movie is information dense, that there is a lot to pack in, and that it demands active viewing from the audience. The connotation, of course, being created as if that's a bad thing. But the only reason why I brought it up as possibly a film's demerit is because in a feature film, excessive information can take the shape of word vomit, which can be tough to keep track of. Hence, a lot of people justifiably brought up on how an episodic series on the same topic probably would have been an absolute blast. Irrespective, I've had such an awesome time even after watching Dhurandhar the second time that I just really wanted to share with you everything that went down in chronological order. Yes, this is a spoiler-filled discussion of the movie and we will try to break down its historical references too. Mind you, these are all assumptions, not fact from the parallels we can create that the movie shed light on. Whether or not these characters and moments are actually based on the real people and events I will be mentioning in the video has been neither confirmed nor denied by the makers, so I can't confirm or deny it either. I can only assume. So let's start. The first point that I want to clarify is the outrage surrounding the film, specifically Ranveer Singh possibly playing the role of Major Mohit Sharma. While the timeline in which Major Mohit Sharma was active aligns with the film that it is set in the mid-2000s, the operations of Major Mohit Sharma was vastly different from what Ranveer Singh is assigned to do in Dhurandhar. The mission of Major Mohit Sharma assimilating under the alias of Iftikhar Bhatt was taking place in Indian territory, in areas of Kashmir where the Hizbul Mujahideen camps were active. The main aim was to curtail Pakistan-sponsored insurgency while he still carried on the mission on home turf. Ranveer, on the other hand, is assigned to assimilate within the notorious Lyari gang in Karachi in order to dampen the impact of not only terrorism in the form of arms and ammunition being supplied to the ISI by the said gangs, but also to stop fake currency going across the border. The ISI using these gangs as fronts so that they are never put in the ringer of suspicion. And I think the biggest feature of the film that almost cements in stone that the makers had no intention of portraying or even undermining Major Mohit Sharma's contribution to the nation is that Ranveer Singh is not a decorated officer, but someone who was handpicked, reformed and trained. His origin story is still kept at bay to be explored for part 2, but we can create our own conclusions from the glimpses we have seen. I would love to know what your theory is on who is Jaskirat Singh Rangi before he became Hamza for the Intelligence Bureau. When I saw the CBFC opening frame, I got slightly worried by the 214-minute running time, but I knew I could trust someone like Aditya Dhar who really has dedicated blood, sweat and tears for this project, especially when you put into context the 6 years that have gone by for him ever since Uri and Ashwathama eventually getting shelved. He had a lot to prove with his next project, not just to the audience but to himself and those in positions of power of funding movies who did not have the faith in him that he can collect the big bucks with a high concept project like Ashwathama. I think Aditya Dhar has been very categorical regarding the legal stance he has taken in regards to who he names in the film. While Indian and Pakistani officials like Ajit Doval and Nabil Kabul are not named, characters like Ajay Sanyal played by R. Madhavan is clearly modelled around the Intelligence Bureau Chief, and the character of Jamil played by Rakesh Bedi is clearly modelled around the PPP elected leader. But for legal purposes, Aditya strays away from naming the Indian and Pakistani officials associated with the governments. Of course, this is all assumption and not fact. The one he goes full throttle with are the gangsters of Lyari and the encounter specialist police officer Chaudhry Aslam. I sometimes really wonder about the legal ramifications and loopholes regarding this in portrayal of films. I remember once Shujit Sarkar had said that it was his dream to make a political film where he names everyone, something that Hollywood has done with several political leaders. I wonder whether that is possible, especially when governments are in positions of power and art aims to criticize them. We have had decades of censorship on both sides regarding the same, so I think it is wishful thinking. The movie is divided into chapters, much like how Aditya's produced film Article 370 was as well. We start with chapter 1, which was titled The Price of Peace and the Terrorist. I think this is a very important storyline that builds resentment and anger within an intelligence officer like Ajay Sanyal, who due to politicians often finds himself on the losing side with terrorists. This includes when the BJP was in power during the Kandahar hijack and the trickle effect of attacks that followed, specifically the parliament attacks in 2001 and the UPA, and how there was alleged corruption and collusion with the enemies leading to fake currency being transported and the gruesome 2611 attacks. The silver lining in Sanyal's case is that his one idea gets greenlit, and that is essentially Project Dhurandhar. The IC-814 hijack portrayal of Sanyal providing faith to the passengers was brilliantly performed, yes, but when he says Bharat Mata Ki and the passengers are hesitant to do so because they have a gun pointed at them by the terrorists, only to lead to the man specifically mocking Sanyal by saying Hindu kaum bahut hi darpok kaum hai, feels more of a message to the audience today versus what was the interaction between terrorists. He mocks India being called Sone ki Chidiya, and you see the simmering anger with Sanyal, and that for me was enough to make the point. But Aditya sprinkles his politics through his writing, which sometimes I feel is for the public watching in 2025 versus being apt for the scene set in 1999. He is the creator, he is the god of his world, so he is fully warranted to do as he pleases, but sometimes I feel it's a deterrent to the scene. The scene becomes less about India unified retaliating against Pakistan, but more about Hindu kaum daba hua hai aur ise jagna padega. I hope you understand where I am coming from regarding the scene. The scene is followed by a raw official reprimanding Ajay Sanyal for his lack of intel and preparation. Many people assuming that this brief appearance is of A.S. Dutt, an ex-raw chief who has often been criticized on his stance of dialogue with Pakistan and ISI specifically versus military pressure, and revealing key and sensitive information through his book Kashmir, The Vajpayee Years. The trickle effect of the three terrorists being released leads to the parliament attacks, and Sanyal's purpose even getting more invigorated as he sees a female soldier wounded getting stretchered away. You can see it in Madhwan's eyes that he is desperate for India to retaliate. I loved how Aditya matches the action set pieces of the attacks with real footage. It makes the sequences not just a movie but a painful chapter from our history that we all want to forget. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, assumed to be modelled around Jaswant Singh, finally gives him a yes to Project Dhurandhar after 2 years, the mission at play commences and we get chapter 2, which is titled Stranger in the Lands of Shadows, and this also marks what is the modus operandi of Ranveer Singh in the film, to be one with the shadows, unassuming and assimilating with ease versus producing any doubt within the locals that he may have vested interests. This is where I feel like Aditya could have staged the first appearance of Ranveer in a better fashion, probably staged the scene with the score with as much detail as he introduced the other characters, because Ranveer just seems to appear in a rather basic fashion as he is getting transported through a helicopter to the Afghanistan and Pakistan border. I guess that's also intentional. Ranveer enters the Badlands of Lyari, a locality in Karachi that was infamously known in the 2000s to be of absolute anarchy. Gang wars, illegal businesses, the same shady practices working in collaboration with elected politicians for the goal of election results, consistent shootouts and just pure chaos. If you have the time, I would highly recommend you check out the Vice documentary on YouTube, where in the early 2010s they visit the same place where they interview a Balochi leader and even get escorted by Nabil Gabol, the same person Jamil's character is modelled around, while he holds his personal Kalashnikov, reinstating faith to the camera team of Vice that Liari is very safe. Mukesh Chhabra sometimes comes up with really fine choices regarding casting, and I must tell you, to cast Gaurav Gera as the juice seller was brilliant. I'm seeing him on screen after so long. An actor who spent so many years on television, transitioned to do comedy acts, was huge in the days of Vine, Facebook videos and TikTok, and now appears here as an agent aiding Ranveer Singh. Just to get an insight of the hyenas that would be out in the dark, Liari was infamous for kidnappings, stabbings, murders during the 2000s, and this is precisely what Dhar showcases to us in the first encounter that Ranveer has with the locals from the warring gang, harassing him and on the verge to him too. There is something very fascinating about the area of Lyari that has been described by a journalist in an interview with S.I. Chaudhry Aslam, that it was an area where infamous gangsters and their locations were known. The police would be present in the alley right beside them, but would consciously just coexist rather than take action against them. It's like the presence of the Yakuza with the Japanese government through the 50s and 60s. Violence would happen on the streets in mostly Yakuza-owned establishments, but no one would get imprisoned until strict intervention needed to happen years later.
तो मैंने देखा कि एक गली में पूरे पाकिस्तान की पुलिस वहाँ मौजूद है और दूसरी गली में उज़ैर बलूच साहब जो हैं वो मीडिया से मुखातिब थे. मैंने खुद उनका वहाँ इंटरव्यू किया. उस गली तक आने के लिए मैंने जब एक पुलिस वाले से पूछा तो उसने कहा हमें ऊपर से ऑर्डर नहीं है.
Introduced as Hamza Ali Mazari, Ranveer starts working in the juice shop and gains the trust and confidence of Gaurav Gera. I think this is where my point of contention commenced, where I said that the movie is predictable and linear in structure. As Ranveer is working in the juice shop, 1 year has passed and it is almost doubled down with a voiceover of Sanyal, exposing the goal of every agent is Nazar and Sabr. So we already know that he has been recruited by Sanyal for the mission at hand. This establishes who to trust and who to root for from the get-go, making the ultimate reveal of the climax not shocking at all. I wish the movie already provided us Hamza as a local in Liari versus showing his journey of entering the space. At least it would have allowed for the ultimate revelation to have some shock value. Project Dhurandhar getting greenlit for it to transition to Ranveer traveling in a helicopter, crossing the border, and the voiceover of Sanyal instructing him became spoon-feeding the audience, which I believe the makers did not really have to divulge into. The juice shop owner gives Ranveer a breakdown of the dynamics within Liari, the area being divided between Raman Dakat, played by Akshaye Khanna, and Arshad Pappu, played by Dhar. Both real people, by the way. And this is where Chapter 3 takes center stage, titled The Bastard King of Liari, already telling us that Akshaye Khanna as Raman Dakat is vicious to anyone who lies to him, that even when his mother told him that he may be an illegitimate child of one of the leaders from the opposite gang, he did not even think twice before killing her. Ranveer wants to create an instant impression in order to get into the Baloch gang, and his aim becomes by protecting his son from an attempted assassination. The action sequence, while choppy in nature, really becomes exciting to watch as Shashwat Sachdev's magic with vintage music of Ramba Ho plays in the background. The masterful attention to detail and writing is what stands out for me with Ranveer Singh's performance here, where he knows he has to create an impression with the locals, so even though he fails to save the son, he puts on a performance in trying to resuscitate him, just so that one knows where his loyalties lie, smearing himself in the son's blood just to accentuate the point a little more. Enough is not said about the effective sound design of the film by Bishwadeep Chatterjee. There are real-life cause and effects taking place in collaboration with the musical score, so it's important that nothing dampens the other elements' impact and works in great synchronization. And I think the team throughout the film's running time does this brilliantly, where car accidents, gunshots, wounds, steps of characters, blood spewing all over the place works in tandem with the musical numbers. This is where the aura farming starts, and I can't rave enough about this man. Akshaye Khanna is just someone really special. His screen presence has this gravitational pull that you can't help but be engaged. He commands the room he walks into, processing the grief of losing his son, as Shashwat Sachdev through the score beautifully sets the mood. Misery and loss played by a broken instrument, a sarangi processed by a synthesizer plays in the background, and it fits the mood of the scene perfectly. Raman getting slapped by his own wife and embracing her, wanting inherently to burn the world now. This is where Raman's brother and right-hand man, I couldn't mention him in the review, Danish Pandor, absolutely is solid in the film, who questions Ranveer Singh and tries to remove all kinds of suspicion by interrogating him about his place of birth and experience of working with firearms, trying to wet him in the process. Ranveer, in a brilliant scene of writing, denying monetary compensation and associating his identity to Rahman being considered a messiah for the Baloch people, something that strikes a chord with Rahman, and here Ranveer gets his foot in the door. I love that in the scene, and you may have noticed this, that Ranveer never maintains eye contact with Akshaye Khanna, constantly looking at the floor, respectful but resolute in wanting to be a loyal servant to his master. This is where you realize that Rahman's retaliation is not as simple as one may assume, like the jungle, where the animal retaliates when one attacks their kind. The gangsters work at the mercy of the funding received from political parties, and here comes the crony Jamil, played by Rakesh Bedi, a fake and coward politician who only looks for his vested interest in winning the election, ordering Rahman to not take a hasty decision as it may ruin his chance in the election, hence cutting Akshaye Khanna's funding too. Rakesh Bedi is consistently hilarious, though I must say that I did roll my eyes when he did the Atif Aslam joke. It reiterates the point of how actors feel like they can improv and extract gems, but directors completely disagree but still let it fly. Remember Boobles? That was SRK's idea. Ranveer is given the full lowdown of the illegal practices that happen in Lyari with the funding of the political party. This includes arms and ammunition, drugs, currency and gambling among many other things. This one scene made me realize that so many of the visuals from the trailer are still to come in this saga, as Ranveer in this movie eyes the Gaddi, but in the teaser we had seen him casually sitting on that throne, in control of the Baloch gang, presumably, casually lighting his cigarette. The first glimmer of Raman Daquette's new soldier being special is when Ranveer advises him to take revenge, and this I believe is where the film fully dives deep into the badlands of Liari, eliminating the enemies with a brilliant action set piece working in tandem in several locations. Akshaye Khanna breaking his father's skull and turning it into mush is when you realize that you do not mess with this gangster. You know what I find very interesting is the categorical manner in which Ranveer creates a deeper connection with Akshaye Khanna. He not only smears his shirt with his son's blood, but he makes sure to bring the most vile enemy to him so that he can kill him with his bare hands, instructing the brother, tell Raman Bhai to come to the circle. He knew he wanted to make it a spectacle, wanted to do it with his own hands. These are the finer details that elevates Dhurandhar of how a spy makes that connection with the gang leader. This is where chapter 4 titled Bullets and Roses appears. Jamil is representing the PAP and the entire crowd is not interested in the speech being given, but all the attention gets diverted into Raman Daquette. The gangster is more popular than the political leader, and you see the tide shifting, making Jamil realize that Raman may become a problem in the future. This is also when the romance is established between Ranveer and Sara Arjun. The question arises for me throughout the film looking at their dynamic. Is it all calculated in the head of Hamza aka Jaskirat that he will utilize her for intel, or does he progressively fall in love with her? That will be a question I think which we will get more clarity for in part 2. I would love to know what you believe though. Has he trapped a young girl for the sake of national security of India and the mission, or in the process has fallen in love too? It can be both. This is also where one learns about the nexus of funding that helps politicians with elections. The Khanani brothers appear and one is told on how fake currency gets transported to India too. This is also an attempt by Aditya Dhar through Ajay Sanyal's character where they are critical of the UP government specifically, allowing money to trickle into home turf. Mind you, this is the time Mulayam Yadav was the chief minister and Sanyal hopes for a better tomorrow where there will be some leader in UP who is nation loving. A tip-off, of course, less to do with what is happening and more to entertain the audience watching the movie for the state of UP led by Yogi Adityanath today. Again, these are all assumptions. The movie is also in support of demonetization in many ways, aimed at stopping large denominations of counterfeit money being circulated across borders. You'll realize through Ajay Sanyal's dialogues, his frustrations throughout the missions are followed by the promise of a better tomorrow, all in reference, of course, to the government in power today. Even though the romantic dynamic between Ranveer Singh and Sara Arjun is intentionally awkward and icky, she literally looks like a baby while dancing in the club, Ranveer has a charming way to weasel his way into her life. My only gripe with this dynamic is that barring the initial drop to her home, one does not get familiarized on why Sara gets smitten by him, barring a song which is essentially a montage of beautiful locations. I guess that's what they were going for too, a privileged girl wanting to break from the shackles of the oppressive ways of her father, doing doctory just as an excuse, wanting to find an avenue at an impressionable age just to be defiant, and if it comes through the means of Hamza, then so be it. Arjun Rampal is introduced brilliantly in this film too, as a prominent member of the ISI, who wants Rahman to supply guns to him that should look like they have been supplied by the US or Russia, thus evading any suspicion that it's state-sponsored terrorism as they aim their attack on India. The best person for the job are the Baloch, who Rahman considers to be family that he left far behind. However, if they can be of some use to gain excessive riches, he will sell them too. The Baloch separatist movement is a forgotten chapter in his eyes, and Jaskirat as the Indian agent sniffs the terrible consequences that India will have to face if this plan comes together. I love that Ranveer as a leading man is mostly found observing in scenes like a hawk, while most of the heavy lifting in scenes is done by the likes of Akshaye and Arjun. The song by Flipperachi that plays in the background as Akshaye enters the Baloch welcome party organized for him is such a vibe, totally becoming the highlight banger for me from the film. Don't get me wrong, I love the Hindi retro renditions of Shashwat composed, but this made me want to start vibing with Raman Dakat and the gang. When chapter 5 is introduced with the Jinn played by Sanjay Dutt, you would think that this is just a template Masi Avatar Sanjay Dutt is playing, but I kid you not, when you do see the real Chaudhry Aslam in interviews, you realize that Dutt actually portrayed him to be spot on. It helps that Dutt himself is no different, as the qualities are being no nonsense, blunt and stylish, mostly associated with his white Pathani kurtas and a cigarette in his hand. If you were to even briefly see his interviews, you'll realize that Dutt was not just sleepwalking through the role. He killed it.
वो हमको गोली मारेगा तो वो हमारा बाप भी होगा तो हम उसे गोली मारेंगे.
Jameel wants him to eliminate Rahman, and what's fascinating is that Chaudhry Aslam has often been accused of solely working for the vested interests of Nabil Gabol, the MP of the locality, much like the film. Chaudhry Aslam is handed over a special task force and he is waiting to annihilate his target. Sara Arjun is love-bombed and is advised to spy on her father, and another dig at the UPA takes place where they are accused of siphoning money from the ISI. Sanyal exclaims, "Kismat waqt aane pe badalti hai." When speaking about how politicians are making money in their offshore accounts, the movie in many ways sheds light on the dubious case of a UK company called De La Rue, which was given a contract to print Indian currency during the 2000s, while simultaneously this same company having a contract with the Pakistani government too, in turn allowing for counterfeit currency to go through borders. Of course, these are all allegations. I think it's important to note that the constant use of the word sabr is equally a point of advice for the spies as it is for the 2014 general elections. In chapter 6 titled The Devil's Guardian, when the original plan of 3rd October does not take place, Arjun in his demonic state really performs the most chilling sequence from the film, warning Hamza what may be the outcome if anyone double crosses him. His hatred for India stemming all the way back to 1971, and how the wounds are so deep and grave that he will spare absolutely no one. Arjun is so bloody good in this film, pure demonic vibes as he rips an Indian agent's face off. As Rahman has been captured by Chaudhry, this is where you see the mad animal slowly emerge from the trenches in the form of Hamza, who metamorphosizes from a loyal servant to a defiant soldier. Hamza makes sure to make an example out of the Lyari task force, taking a video ready to blow it up on camera for Chaudhry's pleasure if he does not let go of Rahman. While the execution of this plan was performed really well, I thought that the characters in 2007 sharing videos with each other on the phone was rather convenient. यहाँ थोड़े सिग्नल पे वीडियो डाउनलोड नहीं होती और यहाँ पे full HD quality videos are being sent and seen in real time for fast decisions. It's very important to note that part 1 is where everyone is having the fun and Ranveer is boiling on the stove in low to mid heat, who will only burst as part 2 goes into full gear. Chapter 7, The Butterfly Effect, is probably the most hard-hitting and infuriating portion of the film, where Hamza realizes that the 3rd October date he planned and warned India about was abandoned for a date no one anticipated, only to see the carnage on live television on the 26th of November as the streets of Mumbai became a warfield. The sequence of Arjun, Rampal and Akshaye Khanna cheering like they are watching a football match, the camera zooming into the reality and dread setting in for Ranveer Singh, the film daringly, and I'm so glad they did this, showcasing the real phone recordings of the filthy minds of these animals wanting to kill and burn everything that they consider to be kafirs, had me absolutely speechless. The truth being uncomfortable is such a vague criticism for this film when the fact is that it is the truth. The scene of them cheering as Mumbai burns and Ranveer processing the same with flashbacks to his traumatic past was a brilliant case of exemplary editing, performances and storytelling. This was Hamza aka Jatinder's last straw, formulating on how to attack now. The favored politician of Liari is Rahman. Jameel is not happy with this, and who better to come to the rescue than someone who is family. Hamza's proposal to be Jameel's son-in-law is accepted despite their age gap. This is mentioned several times, by the way, just so that the makers make it clear that they also know it's visually odd. The wedding and the unnecessary item song had me rolling my eyes. It wasn't even a fun song, but anyway. Ranveer plans to attack Rahman on the day where he will be busy with the inauguration of a pipeline, also on the same day when the new consignment of guns is to be picked up. Everyone is distracted and Hamza plans in cahoots with Chaudhry and Jameel to kill Rahman finally. The action choreography when Hamza leads Rahman to the jungle and for this brawl to happen between his henchmen and Chaudhry Aslam is very poorly edited in my opinion and slightly stretched. The action choreography is choppy owing to, of course, Akshaye Khanna and Sanjay Dutt not being their agile old selves. The crescendo, however, is where the film's action choreography showcases the brute strength of Ranveer, hanging someone on a tree and mounting and pounding so hard on Rahman, straight up looking like a UFC fight. You knew his first target was eliminated, but that wasn't enough. Again, a beautiful masterstroke in detail and writing that Raman needs to be brought back to Lyari while he is taking his last breath, so that one assumes Hamza did everything in his might to save him, so that everyone, even the auto rickshaw driver, acknowledges him to be a loyal servant. Hamza, while fake performing in the auto, trying to give his boss a sense of confidence, and Rahman attempting to choke him, made the entire theatre burst out laughing. This, of course, like many aspects of the film, is fictional, as Rahman Daket's death happened in a different manner, as described by Chaudhry Aslam.
काठोड़ वाले रास्ते से शेर की तरफ आ रहे हैं, उस इत्तला पे जाके नाकाबंदी की गई, वहां पे क्रॉस फायरिंग हुई, उसमें रहमान डकैत मारा गया.
The stage is set for Hamza to sit on the gaddi and take control of the Baloch gang, and I think part 2 will really see an animal of influence annihilating the core of what keeps the ISI and its operations against India afloat, the nexus of gangsters in Karachi. I assume, and this is all speculation, as Sanyal states that he wants individuals who are killing machines, he recruited a man who found himself in the depths of violence in his homegrown state, when the world was their oyster. The potential of them as individuals was through the roof. I assume Ranveer was a Punjabi athlete who had aspirations to represent his country, and his parents, who were found in his flashbacks being killed, wanted to see their son represent the country. I think this can be kabaddi, or if you were to connect it to the film we saw, maybe football, as he is skilled while messing around with the gang members in the den. This is the time where Punjab is dealing with the Khalistani movement, and I assume the reason why Ranveer takes up arms and found himself in jail is because he refused to get radicalized by the Khalistanis. The parents wanted to protect him from these extremist elements. The Khalistanis get enraged by their loyalty towards India, retaliate by killing his parents, only for Jaskirat to completely go unhinged and go on a killing spree, eliminating Khalistanis, finding himself in jail, and this very origin story establishes his affinity towards India and his hatred towards terrorists. I think I may be bang on about this. Whether it also has an Uri connection is something that's a wild swing, but I'll keep that at bay till part 2 comes out. What a ride this film was. I also feel like they need to release the Sonu Nigam track in the end too. It was absolutely spectacular. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what are your spoiler thoughts regarding Dhurandhar. I really want the comment section to become an active debate about the movie and its elements. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle is right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.